Okay, right. Let's continue. As we continue, now we're going to talk about the third game, the third game of the quarterfinal clash in the Coppa Italia between AC Milan and Atalanta at the San Siro. Right. Yeah, AC Milan 1, Atalanta 2. Let's get straight into it. It was a great game of football, but unfortunately for AC Milan, they now miss out on another opportunity of clinching silverware this season. And it has been that kind of season for them, up and down. It's been an up and down season for the Rossoneri, up and down. But let's get straight into it, right? So, following the exit of Inter Milan, AC Milan's bitter crosstown rivals in the last round, the Rossoneri now have missed out, right, on a chance, on a great chance to actually win the Coppa Italia for the first time since the 2002-2003 season. So they haven't even won this tournament in over 20 years now. In over 20 years. That's very disappointing. Very disappointing. I get the fact that it might not be a priority for AC Milan, right? But a team of their caliber needs to compete for all the trophies. Irregardless of whether it's a priority or not, they must just compete for all the trophies. Because currently now they're also knocked out of the Champions League, right? Now they have to go for UEFA Europa League playoffs. You understand? So it's not an excuse. And remember, now this gives them another chance of adding to their impressive cabinet of silverware. And this is a great chance. This was their great chance of clinching silverware, with their bitter rivals AS Roma being knocked out by LAZIO, as well as their bitter crosstown rivals Inter Milan being knocked out, who were the defending champions, being knocked out by Bologna in the previous round. It gave AC Milan an overwhelming chance of actually clinching this title for the first time in over 2 decades. But they didn't do that. After a very tepid start, the game ignited in the first half of stoppage time, right? As the two sides, exchanged goals. AC Milan's goal came in the 45th minute through Rafael Leao. That was actually now his 5th goal of the season in all competitions, and his 2nd goal in the Coppa Italia this season, right? He pounced, on a bombing run forward by a French left-back, Theo Hernandez, to actually seize the lead for the hosts. That was a great run from Theo Hernandez, and what a great assist from the French left-back, right? However, the advantage, though, only lasted just 2 minutes. Only 2 minutes. You understand? As, Atlanta found their response, through Dutch midfielder Tien Koopmeiners, who kept on a fantastic move from the visitors in the 2nd minute of stoppage time, leaving both teams level heading into the locker room. But shortly before the Rafael Leao goal, Atlanta manager, the Atlanta coach, Gasperini, had been sent off for his livid reaction to his team not being given a penalty when it appeared that AC Milan midfielder, right, Tijani Reidness shoved his fellow Dutchman, his compatriot Martin de Roon, just as he looked, set to prod home a Charles de Cataleras knockdown, right? But then instead of what we actually saw, de Roon, instead actually clashed heads with Matteo Calabria, right? Matteo Gabbia, with such force that the pair were both forced to leave the field. You understand? So even from my own perspective, I don't necessarily understand why Gasperini actually reacted the way he did, because you could see de Roon, he clashed heads with Matteo Gabbia with such force that, it happened that now both players had to be forced out. They had to be forced to leave the field because the injuries were so hectic. The injuries were so serious. You understand? Now they had to both be forced off the field of play, right? And now Gasperini now was sent off for his livid reaction. There was no need for him to react like that. But I understand, it's a quarterfinal clash of the Coppa Italia and Atalanta. This is a team that, not many people would fancy to actually achieve much in a season. Although they've, had an impressive run over the couple of seasons, right? But remember, this is now a chance for them to actually add to their trophy cabinet. This is a tournament that they really fancy. winning, right? So that's why you could understand why Gasperini reacted the way he did, because clearly he wants to win this tournament, and this is the tournament he does fancy winning with his Atalanta side, right? But as the game did continue, right, just before the hour mark, Netherlands midfielder, again, at the thick of things, Cop Miners, struck what turned out to be the decisive goal from the penalty spot, after AC Milan right back Alex Jimenez brought down Aleksej Miranchuk in the penalty area. Unfortunately for the Spanish right back, this game has been a nightmare for him. You remember he's a Real Madrid loanee, so it has been a nightmare for him. But I'm sure he will learn lessons. He's still young, you understand? He will learn lessons. He will learn from his mistakes, and he will grow, you understand, to actually become a great player, right? And from that point onwards, obviously, you wouldn't expect anything less from the Dutch midfielder, Koop Meiners, who now got his brace. And it was a lead that Atalanta, now they took the lead for the first time in the game, and it was a lead that they wouldn't relinquish, even with the host making a late push, at San Siro. As we also noticed, AC Milan goalkeeper Angelo Mirante was also sent off for dissent, as Atalanta untimely, they held strong for their lead, and now they've booked their spot in the Coppa Italia semi-finals. You understand? So the Coppa Italia this season, the Coppa Italia quarterfinal clashes have been nothing short of drama. Like I said, I did mention to you what happened in the Rome derby between LAZIO and Roma at the Stadio Olimpico, and now also in this game there was plenty of drama. You understand? 2 red cards on and off the pitch. Funny how on the touchline Gasperini was sent off, the coach of Atalanta, and now the goalkeeper of AC Milan, Angelo Mirante, was also sent off for dissent. You understand? So it was a great result, great win for Atalanta, a very disappointing result for AC Milan. Because with this loss, AC Milan's hopes of actually winning the trophy were dashed. Now they've also fell short of now they fell short at the quarterfinal hurdle to Atalanta at home. And this also comes following the fact that they failed to advance from the UEFA Champions League group of death, finishing third and falling into the Europa League playoff round, right? And AC Milan now remain very much alive in the Serie A. But with that being said, they will need to actually display a strong second half of the season. Because if they are to actually claim the title, they really need to display some strong character, strong determination, passion, hunger, and they need to just establish dominance and be more consistent. You understand? Because now currently Inter Milan as well as Juventus are already setting the pace at the top of the table. So yeah, it's going to be a tough ask from the Rossoneri, but it can be done. They're just going to need to be consistent. It's going to require a lot of consistency and a lot of hard work from them. Right. So in the other quarterfinal clash at the Allianz Stadium of the Coppa Italia quarterfinal stages, it took place between Juventus and Frosinone. Right. Juventus, obviously nothing less than expected. We knew they were going to win this game by an overwhelming result, and that's exactly what happened, winning the game by 4-0. A hat-trick by Arkadiusz Milik, the Polish striker, scoring his first hat-trick for the old lady Juventus, as well as we did also see a goal by Kenan Yildiz, scoring in the 61st minute to actually seal an impressive victory for Juventus at the Allianz Stadium. Let's get straight into it. Okay, it was a great game of football, but of course it was actually one-sided to say the least. So, me, at 3-0, we all knew that the game was it was far from over. But not even at 3-0, actually, in the first half, when Juventus scored their second goal, we knew that the game was over, done and dusted, because Juve were far dominant. They were overwhelmingly in cruise control of actually winning this quarterfinal clash, right? So even though the game did start slowly, but after they did get the penalty and actually Milik did convert from the penalty spot in the opening 12 minutes of the game, we all knew that Juventus were going to maintain, dominance in this game and maintain a certain level of, performance that we saw. They displayed a great performance, you understand, and we knew that they were just going to win this game. They were going to be in cruise control, in terms of them progressing to the last four. Unfortunately, they were without Federico Chiesa, as he did sustain an injury in training, so they were without the Italian man, but it really did not affect them that much, right? So this particular encounter did mark the 400th time in which Massimiliano Allegri has managed the game for Juventus. And with that very notable accomplishment, one could say that even a fair bit of humor behind it, it was a perfect way to mark such an occasion, for the beloved Musso, to actually win this encounter. It would have been something that would make him smile on the inside, even if he was screaming on the outside, and like he has been a great servant to the old lady. Remember, he also won the league title with AC Milan in the 2010-2011 season. So, he has been a great servant to Juventus as well as AC Milan, but this is his 400th game that he did manage a game for Juventus, right? So it was basically a second straight Coppa Italia blowout in front of the hometown faithful, right? It wasn't quite the absolute trashing that Juve put forth last week against Salernitana, to open 2024, but it was kind of like close, pretty close to say the least, for a second straight Thursday night of Coppa Italia football at the Allianz Stadium, right? So Juventus went out and recorded one of their biggest single game goal tallies over the last couple of years. You understand? It was led by a great hat-trick from Milik, 2 world-class assists from Weston McKennie, who has been on sublime form this season. And it was also capped by a great goal by Kenan Yildiz, as, his latest piece of individual magic. He did show his latest piece of individual magic, the youngster, to say the least. As for Allegri, his squad do continue to roll right along in a 4-0 win over Frosinone to extend their unbeaten run in all competitions to 16 games this season. So currently now, Juventus have now scored 10 goals in 2 Coppa Italia games. You understand? And they are overwhelmingly the favorites to actually win this tournament, even though they will, face a stern test against LAZIO in the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia. With AC Milan already knocked out, with Inter Milan knocked out, with AS Roma knocked out, with Napoli also knocked out. We all know Juventus now stand a chance of actually clinching another Coppa Italia final. You understand? Another Coppa Italia crown, adding more to their trophy cabinet, to their impressive trophy cabinet. All right, Fiorentina in the other quarterfinal clash of the Coppa Italia, which saw Fiorentina take on Bologna. Bologna did surprise us all by actually knocking out the defending champions Inter Milan in the last 16 at the San Siro. So Bologna were also hoping to actually continue with that run of form, to actually claim their first bit of silverware. They've never really won any major silverware in their history, and this could have been their chance to actually clinch some major silverware for the first time in their history, right? So the game was goalless after 90 minutes plus an extra additional minutes of 30 minutes extra time. So after 120 minutes of football being played, unfortunately it was goalless. There were no goals to be scored. So the game had to be taken to the lottery of a penalty shootout. And Fiorentina emerging victorious by 5-4 on penalty shootouts. But let's get into the straight context of the game and what actually took place in this match, right? First of all, right, Fiorentina, the short-handed Viola, right, they did advance on penalties, with a little bit of luck and a whole lot of like grinta, as we did see with manager of Fiorentina, Vincenzo Italiano. He was facing a dearth of wingers, right? So he had to actually change shape, to an unfamiliar 3-4-2-1, formation, using Luco Ranieri, Maxim Lopez, Anton Barak, as well as Lucas Beltran, right? And then as for Thiago Motta, the Bologna manager, a great footballing legend, one of the best midfielders to ever emerge from Italy, who's now a manager for, Bologna. He also did make a couple of changes. He chopped and changed his defense, opting for Lucas Skorupski between the sticks, as well as Sam Bekukema in the middle in place of Federico Ravaglia, as well as Ricardo Calafiori, Ricardo Calafiori, So those were basically the changes that were made from both managers, right? And if you actually look at it, yeah, both changes did kind of work in a way, right? Because if you think about it, yes, both teams, if you look at the context of the game, obviously the first half, Fiorentina were more dominant. They were the team that actually were more assertive. They were the team that were more intentional in their approach in terms of wanting to go to the semifinals. As for Bologna, they were a team that was just like absorbing most of the pressure, right? But in the second half, they did perform way better. They had a much better second half compared to the first half. So let's actually look at the first 45 minutes of that particular encounter, because look, Fiorentina caused Bologna some trouble, right? With a very interesting press that like actually featured, Jonathan Ikone actually like operating as a striker, with Beltran dropping to the left wing, as well as Barak helping, to actually clog the middle, right? So when Felsinei, right, broke through, they created some problems, mostly via Joshua Zirkzee, right? The Dutchman just like, he was not clinical enough in front of goal, because he actually missed a plain simple pass when he was all alone. With 8 yards from goal, letting the ball run under his feet, right, under his foot, and then, left Nikola Milakovic, for dead with a turn before clipping the bar with a left-footed effort, right? But, if you look at Fiorentina, for a side that is actually missing so many key players, so many starters, including most of their wingers, right? They weren't really, that far off the pace, to say the least. They weren't that far off the pace, because they were so convincing in the first half. They certainly had the better chances. They had more ball possession. It was just a matter of them. They were just not clinical in front of goal. That was the only unfortunate part for Fiorentina. And if you look at second half, Bologna, came out guns blazing, constantly threatening down Fiorentina's left, which was indeed highlighted by Riccardo Orsolini driving a shot off the upright, And then we saw Olivier Christensen made a couple of good stops, denying Louis Ferguson as well as Zirkzee, right? But Viola, eventually started to offer the occasional threat on the break. You understand? And then later on in the game, an unfortunate reality did take place, right? We saw Argentine Lucas Beltran was forced off after smashing his nose off, John Lukumi. And, from that point onwards, we saw even Mbala Nzola, he missed a couple of glances at goal. But it was for Lucas Martinez, Quatra, who had a couple of decent looks, nearly snatching it at their death. But he headed it straight to goalkeeper Lucas Skrupski. Which meant that the game would actually go into extra time. So with all the good chances that both teams had, unfortunately both teams were not clinical enough in front of goal, to actually get that, crucial goal, which would send either of the sides into the last four. So the game had to go into another 30 minutes of extra time. If you look at extra time, it was actually close on both ends, right? As we did see with Christensen, he stepped up and made some big saves, on Zirkzee, especially on a 1v1 with Orsolini, while, Milenkovic as well scuffed good chances. He scuffed good chances, as well as Michael Coyote got a free header, all wrong. I mean, that was basically a free header. He was unmarked. There was no pressure on him, but he got it all wrong. All wrong from close range, even. Michael Coyote, And there was a bit of everything, as even Yerry Mina fully grabbed Zergsky nipple as soon as he came off, nearly twisting it right off. But penalties felt like a reasonable conclusion to an intense game, right? A game where both sides were just not clinical in front of goal. Both sides, really threatened so many times, right? They showed what they are capable of, but they just lacked, that sucker punch, that killer instinct in front of goal. They were just not clinical enough in front of goal. And that's the reason why this game had to go into penalty shootouts. And, fortunately seeing Fiorentina actually winning the game, winning the penalty shootouts by 5-4, right? Which will see them take on Atalanta in the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia. And in the other semi-final clash sees Juventus take on LAZIO. So Fiorentina do now stand a chance. With the fact that they are in the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia, they now stand a chance of actually winning their first major bit of silverware since 2001. They did come close last season in the UEFA Conference League by making it to the finals, just losing out to English Premiership side West Ham United. But yeah, certainly the prospects are there. And they are doing so well in Serie A as well. They are like fourth, in the league on the table, just behind AC Milan, Juventus, and Inter Milan. But wow, they are having a decent season so far, a great season. And which has given their fans some great, sense of optimism to actually dream of actually getting a major bit of silverware since, in nearly almost 2 decades. So yeah.